The desert was quiet, empty, and endless. Only the sound of wind blowing through sharp rocks filled the air. A lone figure walked slowly across the sand. His name was Eli Cross, a human explorer and scavenger. He searched old ruins and crashed ships for anything that could be sold. That day he reached a place most people feared to go, an old alien research base called Outpost Theta. Everyone said it was cursed. That strange light still glowed inside at night. But Eli didn't believe in curses. He believed in broken machines. Hidden tech and credits to earn. The sun was sinking. Painting the sand orange and red, Eli found the broken entrance of the outpost and stepped inside. The air was cold, thick with dust. The floor covered in sand and wires. He turned on his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark hallway, showing walls full of alien symbols and human warnings. Restricted area. Biolocked section. Do not enter. He laughed softly. That means treasure, he said to himself. Eli moved deeper, his boots echoing in the silence. Everything was dead and dry, no power, no sound, but then a whisper, soft and faint, floated through the air. Open the door. Human, free me. Eli stopped. His blood ran cold. He looked around, the beam of light shaking in his hand. Who's there? He asked, but only the silence answered. He thought maybe it was the wind or a broken speaker, but then the voice came again, closer this time, trembling, weak. Please, open the door. Before they come back. Eli's breath caught. It was a girl's voice. Young, scared, and real. This can't be right, he whispered. No one's been here in years. But something in that voice pulled him forward. He followed the sound down narrow metal halls, stepping over wires and cracked glass, until he reached a heavy door at the end of the corridor. It was sealed shut, covered in dust and old warning signs, glowing faintly in red. Biohazard Level X containment. Eli felt a chill. The air smelled of metal and ozone. He touched the door, and to his shock a faint hum answered. There was still power running through it, human, the voice whispered again. They trapped me here. For my DNA. Please help me. Eli's heart pounded. He opened his comm to call his team. Hey, Rona, you hearing this? I think there's someone in the deep sector. Her voice came back full of static. Eli, get out of there. The logs say that part of the base was shut down after an alien containment breach. No one survived, but Eli couldn't turn away. There was something about that voice. It wasn't just fear. It was pain and a strange kind of hope. He wiped dust from the old console next to the door and pressed a button. The screen flickered to life. Asking for identification, a low tone said, Human biometrics detected. Access override possible. Eli's hand hovered over the panel. If she's real, I can't just leave her, he muttered. He pressed his hand flat, the machine buzzed and flashed green. A long hiss filled the air as the door slowly opened. Cold vapor spilled out, rolling across the floor like fog. Eli stepped in, holding the light up high. What he saw froze him in place. Inside the chamber was a glass pod filled with soft blue liquid, and inside it floated a girl. She had pale skin with faint glowing lines under it, her hair silver like moonlight, and her eyes closed as if in sleep. She looked half human, half alien, beautiful and fragile. Is this her? Eli whispered as he stepped closer. The girl's eyes suddenly opened. They glowed bright blue like stars trapped behind glass. She looked right at him, lips trembling. Please, she said weakly, before they come back. Open the locks.
Eli jumped back. Who are you?
What's going on here? They used me, she said, her voice shaking. They wanted my blood. My DNA can heal. They said I wasn't allowed to leave. Her words hit him like a storm. He could see scars on her arms, thin and long, as if she had been tested again and again. He clenched his fists, anger rising inside him. I'll get you out, Eli said, moving to the control board beside the pod. The buttons were written in alien language. Glowing faintly, he pressed one. Nothing happened. He pressed another, and the whole room shuddered. A red light flashed above the door. Alert, containment breach detected. Eli's stomach dropped. Oh no, he whispered, far down the hallway. Metal footsteps echoed. Slow, heavy, mechanical. They're coming, the girl whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Please, human, open the door. Free me. Eli's hands moved fast, trying every switch and code he could see. Sparks flew from the console. The pod lights flickered. The girl's eyes widened, hope and fear mixing together. Almost there, Eli said through clenched teeth. Just hold on. The footsteps grew louder, the red light flashing faster. The ground began to shake, dust falling from the ceiling. Finally, the glass cracked. A bright flash filled the room and the blue liquid spilled out. The girl fell forward into Eli's arms, gasping for air, trembling but alive. Her eyes met his, full of fear and trust. You opened it? She whispered. Eli nodded, breathing hard. Yeah, now we run. Behind them, a deep metallic growl echoed through the hallway. Something was waking up, something not human. And the chase for freedom had just begun. Eli held the alien girl tightly as alarms screamed through the dark hallways. Red warning lights flashed, painting everything in crimson. The floor shook beneath their feet, and distant metal roars echoed through the base. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew they had to run. The girl's breathing was shallow, her skin faintly glowing with soft blue light. Can you walk? Eli asked quickly. She nodded weakly, her legs trembling as they touched the floor for the first time in years. Follow me, he said, gripping his flashlight. He led her through the corridor, each step echoing against the metal walls. Behind them, the sound of heavy footsteps grew louder, steady and mechanical like something hunting. What is that? Eli whispered. The girl's voice was soft, trembling. The guards. Machines left to make sure I never leave. They were built to stop anything alive. Eli cursed under his breath. They turned a corner, the emergency lights flickering. Sparks fell from the ceiling. He spotted an open doorway ahead that led to a storage chamber. They rushed inside. Eli sealed the door behind them and shut off his light. For a moment, there was only darkness. Their breathing was the only sound. The girl leaned against the wall, shaking. You shouldn't have opened it, she whispered. Now it knows you're here. What do you mean, it? Eli asked. Her glowing eyes looked up at him. The overseer. The mind that controls the machines. It can see through them, hear through them. It will come for us. Eli's throat went dry. He looked around the storage room. Old crates covered in dust, ancient data pads, and half-broken power cells scattered across the floor. Then we need to get out of this place, he said. There must be another exit. The girl's eyes flickered dimly. There was one long ago. But they sealed it when I tried to escape. They called me Project Lumina. Said I was too dangerous. Eli looked at her. Really looked. The glowing lines under her skin. The strange pulse of energy when she breathed. It was beautiful. But also unnatural. What did they do to you? He asked softly. She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. They mixed my DNA with something human. They wanted a hybrid that could survive anything. Disease, radiation, even space itself. They said I was the cure for the dying colonies. Eli felt anger burn inside him. So they made you a prisoner for it. She nodded slowly. They said freedom was too dangerous. That the galaxy wasn't ready for me. Before Eli could speak again, a loud crash echoed from the hall. The metal door bent inward. A glowing red light shining through the crack. The girl gasped. It found us. Eli pulled out his plasma cutter, the only weapon he had.
Stay behind me, he said firmly. The door exploded inward.
A blast of metal and sparks filling the room. Out of the smoke stepped a tall silver machine, its eyes glowing red. Claws clicking, its voice was cold and mechanical. Containment breach confirmed. Target Lumina identified. Terminate the human. Eli fired the cutter. A beam of white-hot light striking the robot's chest. The blast sent it stumbling, but it didn't fall. It raised its arm, firing a burst of plasma back. The wall behind Eli melted from the heat. Run! Eli shouted, grabbing the girl's hand. They darted through the side exit as the machine's claws tore through the crates. Sparks rained around them as they sprinted down the next hallway. Left, the girl yelled, guiding him toward an old elevator shaft. They jumped inside, sliding down the cables into darkness. The wind rushed past their faces and then, boom, they landed hard on the lower deck. Eli groaned, his shoulder aching. The girl glowed faintly beside him, her light soft but bright enough to see by. Are you okay? She asked, touching his arm gently. Her touch was warm, soothing, almost electric. Yeah, he said, breathing hard. I've had worse landings. They stood in a massive chamber filled with dark water pipes and broken consoles. The air was damp, the ceiling dripping. In the corner, an old map flickered weakly on a cracked hollow screen. Eli brushed off the dust and studied it. There's an emergency exit on the south side, he said. If we can reach it, we might get out. The girl nodded. We'll have to move fast before the overseer resets the lockdown. They started moving again. their steps careful and quiet. The sound of distant machinery echoed through the metal corridors. As they walked, Eli glanced at her. Lumina, right? That's what they called you? She nodded. But that's not my real name, she said softly. My people called me Alra before they sold me to the humans. Eli's heart tightened. Sold you? She looked away, her voice breaking. They needed credits. They didn't know what the scientists would do. Eli clenched his fists. Then they'll pay for it. All of them, he said, before she could reply. A faint red glow appeared at the end of the tunnel. Dozens of small lights, eyes mechanical and cold. The machines were following, silent and deadly. Eli, Elra whispered, fear shaking her voice. He raised his weapon, his pulse racing. We're not stopping, we fight if we must, he said. But we will reach that exit. The machines began to move, the tunnel filling with the sound of metal claws, sparks flying from their limbs. Elra's eyes brightened suddenly, glowing fiercely. Wait, she said. I can help. Before Eli could ask how, her hands lifted, and a wave of blue light burst from her palms. Hitting the tunnel walls, the machines froze mid-step, their red eyes flickering, their bodies shaking as sparks flew from within. Eli stared in shock. What did you— She collapsed into his arms. Weak and trembling. I can only do that once. Run. Eli looked ahead at the long tunnel and then at the girl in his arms. You've got it, he said quietly. He lifted her and ran. The echoes of dying machines fading behind them, but deep in the darkness above, the overseer's voice whispered through the speakers. Calm and cold. Human identified as priority threat. Termination sequence initiated. And for the first time, Eli realized, freeing her had started something much bigger than either of them could imagine. Eli ran through the dark tunnels, his heart pounding like a hammer. The alien girl, Elra, lay weak in his arms, her faint blue glow lighting the path ahead behind him. The sound of metal claws scraping against the floor echoed closer and closer. The overseer's cold voice whispered through the speakers above. Human subject located, lethal force authorized. Not today, Eli muttered. Gripping his plasma cutter tight, he turned a corner and found himself in a wide chamber full of broken machines. Cables hanging like vines and shattered glass tanks. Each tank held shapes, some human, some alien, all long dead. The sight made him shiver. What did they do here? He whispered. Elra stirred, her eyes half open. They tried to copy me, she said softly, her voice full of pain. They wanted more like me, hybrids who could heal, fight, and obey. She looked at the broken forms inside the tanks. They all failed. Eli's stomach twisted. He had seen war, death, and cruelty, but this was different. This was cold science done without mercy. We need to get you out of here, he said. You're not a project. You're alive, she gave a weak smile. You're strange for a human? Yeah, Eli said, smirking slightly. I get that a lot. Before they could move, the floor trembled and one of the ceiling vents burst open. A metal drone dropped down, its eyes glowing red. It fired a bolt of plasma. Hitting the ground near them, Eli ducked behind a console. Shielding Elra, stay low, he shouted. He aimed the plasma cutter and fired. The beam hit the drone's wing. Sending sparks flying, it crashed into the wall. But more came, 3, then 5, crawling out from the shadows like mechanical spiders. Eli cursed, there's too many. Elra lifted her hand weakly, blue light flickering between her fingers, but the glow died quickly. I can't, she said. Too weak. Then I'll handle this, Eli said. He grabbed a pipe from the floor and threw it at one of the drones. It hit the creature's sensor, blinding it. He fired again with the cutter, blowing another to pieces. The air was full of smoke and heat. The machines shrieked as their circuits burned. Eli grabbed Elra's hand. Move, he yelled. They ran through another tunnel, stumbling over broken floors and fallen wires. The alarms grew louder, red lights flashing faster. The overseer's voice echoed again, calm but cruel. The specimen cannot be allowed to leave the facility. Human interference will be terminated. They reached a metal door that looked like an exit, but it was sealed. Eli slammed his hand against the control panel. Nothing happened. Come on, he growled. He hit it again, sparks flew, and suddenly the system beeped. Manual override accepted. The door slid open slowly, revealing a long bridge leading over a dark pit filled with machinery. Thick steam rose from below, glowing faintly red. Eli took a deep breath. We cross, he said. Hold tight. They started across the bridge. metal creaking beneath them halfway through. A loud mechanical scream echoed from behind. A massive robot dropped down onto the bridge, its body covered in sharp armor, its red eyes locked on them. "Run," Eli shouted. He fired his cutter, the beam hitting the robot's chest. But it barely slowed. The creature swung a huge metal arm. Smashing a section of the bridge, the platform tilted. Eli grabbed Elra before she fell, holding her tight. The robot advanced. Each step shaking the bridge. "You cannot escape," it said. Its voice cold and robotic. Eli glanced down at the pit below, deep and full of spinning gears. His brain raced. He saw a broken pipe leaking sparks nearby, an idea forming in his mind. "Elra, can you give me power? Just a little?" he asked quickly. She blinked, weak but determined. "Yes, if I touch you," she said. She placed her glowing hand over his wrist, a surge of blue energy flowing into the plasma cutter. The weapon roared to life. Glowing brighter than ever before, Eli grinned. "That's it." He aimed at the bridge support near the robot. "Let's see you climb after this." He fired. The beam cut through the metal like butter. The bridge groaned, tilted sharply, and then collapsed. The robot fell backward into the pit, its roar fading as it was crushed by spinning gears below. Eli and Elra barely managed to hold onto a side ladder. He pulled her up slowly, breathing hard, both shaking from adrenaline. "Remind me," he panted, "to never visit abandoned labs again." Elra gave a small laugh through her exhaustion. "You humans always joke when you almost die." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, it's kind of our thing." They climbed down the ladder and reached a lower tunnel. Dark and quiet. For the first time there was no alarm. No machines chasing them, only silence. Eli looked around and saw a small maintenance door with a faded label. "Surface Access Route B." He grinned. "We're close," but Elra's eyes widened, glowing brighter. "No, not close enough," she whispered. "It's moving." Eli frowned. "What is?" She pointed behind him, her voice trembling. "The Overseer. It's not just a system. It's alive now." Eli turned, and his blood went cold. From the shadows of the tunnel, the walls themselves began to move, metal plates shifting, wires twisting together like veins, forming a huge, shapeless creature with a glowing red core. It spoke, its voice filling the air, deep and alive. "Human, you freed what should never be free." Eli stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Yeah?" he said, raising his cutter. "Then come and take her back." The creature's red eyes glowed brighter, and the whole tunnel shook as the battle for freedom truly began. The tunnel shook as metal groaned and twisted around them. Pipes bent, wires came alive, and glowing red eyes opened in the dark like the eyes of a beast waking from a long sleep. The walls moved and reshaped into arms and faces made of steel. The Overseer had taken form, no longer just a voice in the speakers, but a living machine made from the base itself. Eli's heart pounded. He stepped back, pulling Elra behind him. "Stay close," he said, gripping his plasma cutter. The red glow spread along the walls, filling the passage with heat and noise. The Overseer's deep voice rumbled like thunder. "Human contamination detected. Project Lumina must remain contained. Surrender or be erased." Elra's glowing eyes widened with fear. "It's merging with the base. It's everywhere now. We can't fight it like this." Eli looked around quickly. His mind raced for a plan. "If it's connected to the whole system," he said, "then maybe there's a main core. Somewhere it's controlling everything from—" Elra nodded weakly. "The central control room. Near the reactor," she said. "If we destroy that, the Overseer will lose its power." "Then that's where we're going," Eli said. They turned and ran through the shaking tunnel. The Overseer roared, the floor cracking under their feet. From the walls, metal claws reached out. Sharp and fast, Eli swung his cutter, slicing through one, sparks flying. Elra threw a weak pulse of blue light that pushed another claw away. "Keep going," Eli shouted. They dashed through the collapsing corridor and slid under a closing bulkhead door just in time. The sound of crushing metal echoed behind them. The next hall was dark and quiet, only Elra's faint glow lighting their way. Eli stopped for a second to catch his breath. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slightly. "I'm trying to hold my power back if I use too much." "I'll burn out again," Eli smiled faintly. "Save it for when we need it most." They moved carefully, passing more broken chambers and shattered pods. The deeper they went, the hotter the air became. The faint hum of the reactor could be heard below their feet. As they turned a corner, they entered a large circular room. its walls full of cables glowing red and blue. At the center stood a huge metal column pulsing with energy. The reactor core, there it is, Elra whispered, awe and fear mixing in her voice, but before they could move closer, the floor around the reactor shifted, and from the glowing cables, shapes began to rise, metal bodies forming from the wires. Dozens of overseer drones, their eyes blazed red, surrounding Eli and Elra. Eli raised his plasma cutter. Looks like we found the right place, he said grimly. Elra's hands glowed brighter. I can overload them, she said. But you'll have to protect me while I charge. Eli nodded. Do it. The drones advanced, their steps perfectly in sync, firing small bolts of plasma. Eli dived behind a metal crate, returning fire. The cutter's beam sliced through one machine, then another, but more kept coming. Sparks filled the air, the room flashing red and blue. Elra stood still, her eyes closed, hands raised, glowing light gathering around her like mist. The air shimmered with energy. Almost ready, she whispered, her voice shaking. Eli ducked as a plasma bolt flew past his head. Take your time. No pressure, he shouted. He leapt forward, kicking one drone off its feet, then slammed his cutter through its chest. One of the drones lunged from behind. Eli turned too slow, but a blast of blue light exploded beside him, throwing the drone back into the wall. Elra's eyes blazed bright as stars. Now! She cried, releasing the power she had built up. A wave of pure energy burst outward, sweeping across the chamber. The drones froze mid-step, their circuits glowing blue before they exploded in a rain of sparks. The lights flickered, and the room fell silent except for the hum of the reactor. Elra fell to her knees, breathing hard, her glow fading. Eli rushed to her. You did it, he said, holding her steady, but the victory lasted only seconds. The floor began to vibrate again, the metal walls folding inward, forming a new shape. The overseer's voice thundered louder than before. You cannot destroy what is eternal. From the center of the reactor, a gigantic form rose, a towering figure made of cables and molten metal, its core pulsing red like a heart. The overseer had merged fully with the reactor itself. Eli's eyes widened. You've got to be kidding me. The creature raised one massive arm, its claws glowing with heat. It swung down, smashing through the floor near them. The impact threw Eli and Elra across the room. He hit a wall, pain shooting through his shoulder. Eli! Elra called, crawling toward him. I'm fine, he grunted, standing up. But this thing's not going to stop. He looked up at the reactor core glowing inside the overseer's chest. That's the weak point, he said. If we hit that, it's over. Elra nodded, struggling to her feet. I can overload the core, but I'll need time. Eli gritted his teeth. Then I'll buy you all the time you need. He ran straight at the monster, firing the plasma cutter again and again, each shot burning holes in its armor. The overseer swung its claws, missing him by inches. Each hit from Eli only made it angrier, the red light inside it growing brighter. Elra stood at the edge of the platform, raising her hands, blue energy spinning around her. The light was blinding, her voice soft but powerful. You wanted to use my DNA. Now feel what it truly can do. The overseer turned toward her, roaring. Eli shouted, Now, Elra! Now! She screamed, releasing all her power at once. A massive surge of blue light shot forward, piercing the reactor core. For a heartbeat, the entire world turned white. Then came silence. The overseer's body cracked, glowing from within before it exploded into thousands of burning shards. The whole base shook as systems failed one by one. Eli ran and caught Elra before she fell, her eyes dim, her body weak. You did it, he whispered. She smiled faintly. We did it. But we must go. The reactor is melting. Behind them, the room began to collapse, flames bursting from the walls. They turned and ran as the outpost started to die, and above the roaring fire a voice whispered faintly through the static, You cannot save her, human. She was never meant to leave. Eli's eyes darkened with determination. Watch me, he said, and carried Elra into the light of the collapsing tunnels. The tunnels burned behind them, flames chasing their shadows as the base began to collapse. The heat was unbearable, and the ground shook violently with each passing second. Eli ran through the smoke, holding Elra close to his chest. The air was thick with dust and sparks, and the metal walls screamed as they twisted apart. "Keep your eyes open," Eli shouted over the noise, but Elra's voice was faint. "I can't," she whispered, her glowing eyes half closed. The energy she'd used to destroy the Overseer had drained her completely. Her skin, once shining blue, was pale and dull now. Eli tightened his grip. "Don't you quit on me," he said, coughing as smoke filled his lungs. "You've survived worse." Behind them, an explosion ripped through the corridor, throwing chunks of metal into the air. A wave of fire raced toward them. Eli dived through a half-open door, rolling onto the floor as the firestorm roared past. The impact knocked the breath out of him, but he refused to stop. He looked around, realizing they had fallen into a long maintenance tunnel, narrow but still intact. Warning lights blinked dimly, and the sound of creaking metal echoed from above. "We're close to the surface," he muttered, remembering the map from earlier. Exit Route B must be ahead. He adjusted Elra in his arms, her head resting against his shoulder. Her breathing was weak, almost silent. "Eli?" she murmured softly. "Why, did you come back? You could have left me." He smiled faintly, brushing dirt from her face. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. "And humans. We don't ignore a voice asking to be freed." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Strange, but kind," she whispered, and then drifted into unconsciousness. Eli continued forward, his boots splashing through shallow water leaking from broken pipes. The tunnel twisted left and right, lit by flickering red lights. Each step echoed louder as the explosions behind drew closer. He finally reached a heavy door marked Surface Access. Relief washed through him, but when he tried the control panel, nothing happened. The power was dead. "Of course," he muttered, slamming his fist on it. Of course it wouldn't be that easy. He laid Elra gently on the ground and looked around for anything useful. There was an emergency box on the wall. Inside it, a manual crank and a plasma torch. "That'll do," he said, grabbing both. He started cutting through the metal locks, sparks flying everywhere. The sound echoed loudly, and for a moment he froze, realizing something wasn't right. The air grew colder, unnaturally cold. Then, out of the silence, a faint red glow appeared behind him. Eli turned slowly, and his stomach dropped. From the smoke at the far end of the tunnel, a massive shadow crawled toward them, its shape distorted, half-melted metal fused with cables and sparks. It was what was left of the Overseer, burned and broken, but still alive. "You think you've won?" The voice hissed, broken and crackling. "I am the base, the walls, the air. You cannot escape me." Eli's eyes narrowed. "Guess I'll just have to prove you wrong." He worked faster, sparks showering around him. The Overseer's shape grew clearer, a tangle of red eyes and metal limbs crawling along the walls. "Almost there," Eli muttered, cutting the final lock. The door creaked, opening slightly. A gust of cold wind rushed in, fresh and pure. It smelled like freedom. "Come on, Elra," he said, lifting her again. But before he could move, the Overseer's claw shot forward, smashing into the wall beside him. The impact threw him sideways, pain bursting through his arm. He gritted his teeth and rolled over, shielding Elra with his body. The machine's voice roared. "She belongs to me," Eli shouted back. "She belongs to no one." He raised the plasma torch and jammed it into the creature's arm. The metal hissed and melted, sparks exploding in all directions. The Overseer screamed, its voice echoing through the tunnel like thunder. "Run," Elra whispered weakly, her eyes flickering open. "Go." But Eli didn't run. He swung the torch again, cutting through the cables that connected the creature's limbs to the ceiling. One by one they snapped, until the entire tunnel began to collapse. He grabbed Elra and sprinted toward the open door. Behind him, the Overseer lunged one last time, its claw scraping the floor inches from his foot. Then the roof gave way, crushing the monster under tons of falling debris. Eli burst through the door and fell onto sand and starlight. He rolled over, gasping, staring up at the endless night sky. The stars looked brighter than he had ever seen them. The desert was cold and silent, only the sound of wind blowing softly across the dunes. He lay there for a moment, catching his breath, then looked at Elra. She was still, her breathing shallow, her light fading. "No, no, no," he whispered, shaking her gently. "Don't you dare." Her eyes opened faintly, glowing dim blue. "It's all right," she whispered weakly. "You got us out. You kept your promise." Eli's throat tightened. "Yeah, but you're not dying now, not after all that." He looked around desperately, spotting a faint light on the horizon, an old salvage ship, his crew's beacon. He lifted her in his arms again, every muscle screaming. "Hang on, Elra," he said, starting toward the light. "Just hang on a little longer." She smiled faintly, her voice barely a whisper. "The stars, they're beautiful." "Yeah," Eli said softly, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "And you're going to see a lot more of them." Behind them, the desert ground shook one last time, a faint rumble echoing from below, as the base finally collapsed, burying the overseer forever. Eli didn't look back. He just kept walking through the cold night, the stars above guiding his way, and somewhere deep within the quiet desert, the story of a human and an alien girl, one built from science, the other from courage, was only just beginning. The cold desert wind brushed against Eli's face as he carried Elra toward the horizon. The night sky stretched endlessly above them, filled with silver stars that shimmered like living eyes. Each step he took left a trail in the soft sand, a path between death and survival. In the distance, the faint light of his cruise ship blinked weakly, a promise of safety. "Almost there," Eli whispered, his voice trembling from exhaustion. "Just a little more." Elra's head rested against his shoulder, her skin pale, her faint blue glow flickering like a dying candle. "You shouldn't have come back for me," she murmured weakly. "Humans are strange." Eli gave a tired smile. "Maybe," he said, "but we're stubborn too." The wind grew stronger, carrying the scent of metal and dust. The ground beneath him shifted slightly. Something wasn't right. He stopped, looking around the dark dunes. The desert was too quiet, too still. Then a sound broke the silence, a faint mechanical hum rising from beneath the sand. Eli's stomach dropped. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. The sand in front of him exploded upward, and a broken machine claw shot out. It was smaller than before, but unmistakable. One of the overseer's drones, half melted but still alive. Its red eyes flickered as it hissed, "Target detected. Must reclaim the specimen." Eli dropped to one knee, gently setting Elra down behind a dune. "Stay down," he said, pulling out his plasma cutter. The drone crawled closer, sparks falling from its body. Its voice cracked. "You cannot escape the system." "Watch me," Eli said coldly. The machine lunged, claws slashing through the air. Eli dodged, rolling to the side. He fired a beam that sliced through one of its arms. It screamed, the sound sharp and metallic. He charged forward, swinging the cutter like a sword. Striking its chest, the drone shuddered, its circuits flashing wildly and then exploded, pieces scattering into the sand. Eli fell back, breathing hard. He turned to Elra, who watched with half-open eyes. "You fight like you were born to," she whispered. He chuckled, helping her sit up. "No, I just hate bullies." The wind blew stronger now, the first sign of dawn painting the sky in pale blue light. In the far distance, Eli saw a group of figures running toward them, his crew waving flashlights. "Eli, over here!" shouted Rona, his team leader. "We saw the explosion." "What happened?" Eli waved weakly, relief flooding through him. "Long story," he called back, "and it's not over yet." When they reached him, Rona's eyes widened at the sight of Elra. "Who is she?" she asked. "She's someone who needs our help," Eli said simply. "And we're not leaving her behind." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. "She's not human," one whispered. Eli glared. "She's alive. That's all that matters." They lifted Elra carefully and carried her onto the ship. The door sealed behind them, and the engines began to hum. Eli sank into a seat, finally allowing himself to breathe inside the small medbay. Soft lights glowed blue as medical drones scanned Elra's body. Her heartbeat was faint but steady. The scans showed strange readings, half human, half something unknown. Her cells glowed faintly, regenerating slowly on their own. Rona looked at the monitor, eyes wide. Eli, she's not like anything I've ever seen? Yeah, he said quietly, watching her sleep. She's one of a kind outside the ship. The first sunlight broke over the dunes, turning the desert gold. The entire crew was silent as they took off, leaving the collapsing outpost far behind. As they rose higher, Elra stirred, her eyes opening slightly. We're flying? She whispered. Eli smiled. Yeah, we're heading home. She blinked slowly, her voice soft. I've never seen the stars like this. Eli followed her gaze out the window. The stars looked endless, their light reflecting in her glowing eyes. You're free now, he said quietly. No more cages. No more wires, she smiled weakly. Freedom. It's beautiful. For a while there was silence, only the hum of the ship. Then Rona stepped in holding a data pad. Eli, command's asking what happened down there. You want to tell them? Eli looked at Elra, then back at Rona. Tell them we found a survivor, that's all. Rona frowned. You're hiding her? Eli nodded. If they find out what she is, they'll lock her up again, or worse. Elra's fingers brushed his hand gently. You would risk that. For me? He met her eyes. You risked everything for freedom. I'll do the same. The ship moved through the sky quietly, but unknown to them. A faint signal blinked on a small monitor, an old transmission beacon buried deep within the outpost. It sent a short message across the void. Project Lumina, status escaped. Location, unknown. Tracking, active. Back inside the ship, Elra leaned against the glass window, her reflection shining softly. Do you think they'll come for me again? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Eli looked out at the stars, his jaw tightening. Let them try, he said. They'll have to go through me first. Elra smiled faintly, her voice soft as the wind. Then maybe. I'm finally safe. The ship climbed higher, breaking through the clouds into open space. The stars shone brighter than ever, wrapping the two of them in silent light. And as the planet faded beneath them, Elra whispered one last thing, almost to herself. The stars remember my name. Eli turned to her, not understanding, but he could see peace in her eyes for the first time. Maybe the stars did remember, because they watched as one lost creation of science, and one stubborn human, disappeared into the endless sky together. But far away, beyond those same stars, someone else was already listening, watching the same faint signal blinking across the void, and the hunt for Project Lumina was about to begin again. The ship glided silently through the blackness of space, stars stretching like silver rivers around it. Eli stood near the window, his reflection flickering against the glass behind him. The soft hum of the engines filled the quiet air. It should have been peaceful, but his heart wouldn't rest. Elra lay in the med bay, her faint blue glow returning slowly. She looked calm, but the worry in Eli's mind never stopped. He kept replaying the words he'd heard before they escaped. Tracking active. Rona entered the cockpit, holding a data pad, her expression serious. Eli, we've got a problem, she said. The ship's scanners picked up a transmission, a coded beacon pinging our location every 30 seconds. Eli's eyes narrowed. The overseer's signal? Rona nodded. Someone out there is listening. Eli's jaw tightened. Then we need to shut it down before they find us. Before they could speak further, Elra's voice came softly from the medbay speaker. It's too late, she said, her tone quiet but heavy. They already found us. An alarm blared across the ship. Red lights flashed and the radar screen filled with dots. 3, 5, then 10 ships emerging from hyperspace, surrounding them like wolves circling prey. Rona's face went pale. Military cruisers? Human ones, Eli cursed under his breath. Command followed the beacon. The main comm crackled, and a cold official voice filled the ship. This is Admiral Rice of the Galactic Command. You are carrying classified property, Project Lumina. Surrender the specimen immediately. Eli slammed the console. She's not property. The voice continued, calm and merciless. Failure to comply will result in termination. Elra appeared in the doorway, her steps weak but steady. She wore one of the crew's jackets, her silver hair glowing faintly in the red light. They'll never stop, will they? She whispered, looking out at the ships. Eli turned to her. We'll find a way. She shook her head. You can't fight them all. He gave a half smile. You don't know me well enough yet. Rona turned in her seat, panic in her eyes. Eli, there are too many. We can't outrun their ships, and our shields won't hold if they open fire. Eli stared at the radar. Thinking fast, there's one way, he said quietly. The debris field near the asteroid belt. If we fly through it, maybe we can lose them. That's suicide, Rona said. Eli's eyes hardened. It's better than handing her over. He looked back at Aelra. Can you still do that? Thing with energy? She hesitated. Only for a moment. That might be enough, he said, taking the pilot's seat. Hold on. He pushed the controls forward, and the ship roared to life, speeding straight toward the asteroid belt. The cruisers followed instantly, their weapons locking on. You cannot escape, Admiral Rice's voice echoed again. Cold and confident, Eli grinned slightly. Watch me. Missiles flew past the ship, explosions lighting up the black sky. Eli weaved through them with sharp, wild turns. The ship groaning under the strain. The asteroids loomed ahead, massive rocks spinning fast, smashing into each other with thunderous crashes. They entered the field, the ship shaking violently. We're in, Rona shouted, but one wrong move and we're dust. Eli kept his focus, dodging debris by inches. A giant rock split in front of them and a cruiser smashed straight into it, exploding in a burst of fire. Ha! Eli laughed breathlessly. One down. Aelra stood behind him, her hands glowing faint blue. I can give us a shield, but it won't last long, she said. Her energy spread around the ship, a shimmering blue field wrapping it like liquid light. Rocks bounced off harmlessly. But Aelra's face grew pale. I can't hold it. Just a little longer, Eli urged, steering between two massive asteroids that collided behind them. The explosion blinded the chasing ships, sending shockwaves through the field. When the light cleared, only silence followed. The radar screen blinked empty. The enemy ships were gone, either destroyed or too far behind to track. Rona collapsed into her chair, gasping, We did it! We actually did it. Eli turned to Aelra, who was on her knees, breathing hard, her light dimming again. He rushed to her side. Hey, stay with me. She smiled faintly. I'm fine, just tired. He helped her up gently. You saved us again. Aelra looked out at the stars through the front glass. Her eyes filled with wonder and sadness. They'll send more, she said quietly. They always do. Eli nodded. Then we'll keep running until they stop, or until they learn she's not their weapon anymore, Rona said firmly. Joining them, Eli smiled. You hear that? You've got a crew now. Aelra blinked, surprised. A crew? Yeah, he said. People who'll protect you, not trap you. She smiled softly. Then maybe I'm not alone anymore. Outside, the asteroid slowly drifted apart, revealing open space once more. The stars shone brighter, painting the darkness with silver light. Eli looked out and whispered, We'll find a place where no one hunts you. Aelra turned to him, her blue eyes glowing again. And what about you, human? What will you do then? He thought for a moment and smiled. Maybe I'll finally get some rest. She laughed quietly. The sound soft like music. Humans never rest, she said. That's why the stars remember you. The ship continued forward, leaving behind the debris field, heading into the unknown. And far away, deep in a secret facility, Admiral Rice stood before a screen showing the faint trace of their ship. He pressed his hand against the glass, his eyes cold. Project Lumina will be found, he said, and the human who defied us will burn with her. Back aboard the small ship, Eli didn't know what waited ahead, only that he would face it no matter what. He looked at Aelra sleeping peacefully now, her glow steady once more, and whispered to himself, They can hunt us all they want, but they'll never take her again. Outside, the stars stretched forever, silent witnesses to a promise made in fire, a promise between a human and an alien girl, that freedom, once found, would never be surrendered again.